Was that a legendary?
Everything's coming up Millhouse!
Hey, what's up everybody? Today I want to talk about Borderlands, released in 2009 for the PC, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3. So, the first question we have to ask ourselves is, what exactly is Borderlands? To put it bluntly, Borderlands is a first-person role-playing shooter. We assume control of one of 4 vault hunters on the planet of Pandora, hunting for a vault full of vast amounts of treasure. In my memory, Borderlands is the first game to ever receive the title looter-shooter for this type of genre. And this labeling makes a lot of sense when you consider the fact that the whole point of Borderlands is going through the game and collecting items to upgrade your character and make them more powerful. And you go through so much loot. And the game is best summarized by being a clothes shopping simulator. You literally go through thousands of items trying to figure out what's the best fit for you. The only saving grace is the color coding they included for weapons. White is common, green is uncommon, blue is rare, purple is epic, and orange is legendary. And if y'all are anything like myself, you immediately ignore white weapons. With Borderlands being an RPG, there are leveling mechanics involved in every aspect of the game whenever you earn experience. With this experience, our characters will eventually level up, and when they level up they receive a skill point. The skill point is then allocated to a skill point tree that's unique to each character. To be frank, the skill point trees in Borderlands are kind of bland. About half of the skill point items you can add to just modify the things your guns do. The other half of it is modifying the special ability each character uses, be it a turret, a hawk, smashing fists, or phase walking. One thing I really didn't enjoy about the leveling system is you could walk into a new area, and the enemies would be 4 to 5 levels higher than yourself, and you'd have to fight them, but you do literally no damage. This makes the game feel grindy, and it also removes any idea of exploration. You also collect currency as you progress throughout the game, and I don't know if it's just me, but to me, money feels useless in Borderlands. Everything that you can buy in town, you can actually find out in the field. Why would I buy it? Really, the only reason currency is in the game is to pay for when you have to respawn. It's always 8%. No matter how much money you have on you, you always pay that same fee. And we're not even going to get into how weird it is that you get shot and killed, cloned, brought back, you have the same knowledge as the previous version of yourself. It's just a crazy existential crisis. I think Gearbox deserves a bit of credit for the voice acting in the game. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. Claptrap is hilarious.
I am CL4PTP. You may call me by my locally designated name, Claptrap.
But I noticed the lip syncing is really bad for Tannis and Marcus. I don't know what they were thinking when they put this out, but clearly they didn't put enough love into it.
Far be it from me to put a damper on chasing a dream, but that vault's about as likely as having scars invite us to a tea party. What the
Alright, now we gotta talk about the weaponry. The original Borderlands had 7 categories for weapons you could use. Now, within these 7 categories, it's rather difficult to quantify the number of weapons available to the players. When they made Borderlands, they had 40 to 50 designs that they use, and they use a random number generator to modify the stats for each level of the weapon. And it's never the same, it's always different. The first category of weapons they give you is repeaters and magnum revolvers. The second is submachine guns. And the third is shotguns, and I can't tell you how much I love the fire rate on some of them. The fourth option they give you is machine guns, and I find that most of the sights they give you obstruct your view, and they're very hard to use. The fifth option is sniper rifles, and they do everything they're supposed to do. And the second last option they give you is rocket launchers. And I don't know why, but when you fire a rocket in this game, they move extremely slow. And lastly, we have iridium weapons, which are alien to the world, but to me, they're freaking useless. One thing I really like about Borderlands is for every piece of equipment you handle, there's a special manufacturer that produces it. One of my favorite manufacturers is Malawan. They add elemental damage to each weapon you use. Near the end of the game, I got an acidic shotgun, and I have to say, the screams still haunt me to this day. One of the best things about Borderlands is the planet of Pandora. It brings a really unique environment to the table, and the characters that inhabit it only enhance the experience. I really enjoy Marcus. He's kind of a charming character. There's Claptrap, who's really funny. There's Dr. Zed. And then there's TK Baha, Scooter, Tannis, Helena Pierce. And then the bad guys themselves are really unique. I thought they did a great job on the bosses. Borderlands brings 8 main bosses to the table when you play through the main campaign. The first boss that we experience is Nine Toes. He sets the bar for the game, and he really shows that the game is going to be a lot of fun. Normally, he has 2 dogs that will attack you at the same time, Pinky and Digit. During this playthrough, I had the first dog attack me, but the second dog... Oh. The second boss that we encounter is Sledge, and he's pretty funny. I mean, overall it's a pretty boring boss fight. I killed him pretty quickly as well. And then we come to my least favorite boss in the game, Crom. Crom uses a turret and he hides behind a large cliff. And I have to tell you, out of all the bosses in the game, I hate this one the most. The fourth boss that we encounter in the game is Taylor Cobb, and you kind of get trapped in this little courtyard where he comes out with a rocket launcher and 2 turrets pop up. Overall, it was a lot of fun to fight him, and it was kind of stressful. After we defeat Taylor Cobb, we get access to the Trash Coast. And on the Trash Coast, we get to fight the Rack Hive. And this is easily one of my favorite boss fights in the game. He's huge, he's massive, and he spawns smaller enemies that fly at you. Really cool. The third last boss fight in Borderlands is against Baron Flint. This is the last boss in the game that involves anything to do with the bandits. And I kind of felt disappointed by this. I think that all 4 boss fights against bandit lords are always kind of boring. The only one that I kind of really enjoyed was Nine Toes and Sledge, but the last 2 didn't really do it for me. And then we get into the last 25% of the game, and we start fighting the Crimson Lance. And this leads into our second last boss, which is Master McCloud. He's basically a specialized Crimson Lance soldier with an iridium weapon. Other than that though, he has a little bit extra health. It was a nice change of pace for the game to give you this kind of boss.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
And I do want to talk about the final boss in the game, but I feel it's very spoilerish, so we'll save that for the plot section. I think Borderlands did a really good job on the wildlife that inhabits Pandora as well. One of the first animals that we run into is the skag, and the skag almost reminds me of the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. You know, if Borderlands wouldn't have came out first, we all would have swore that they stole the idea from Stranger Things, but really it's just a Demogorgon crossed with a dog, and that's a skag. It should be mentioned there's a variety of skags in the game. There's whelps, adults, elites. It's really nice. I have to admit they did a good job on the variety. The next set of wildlife that we encounter is the scythids. I really like the design. It's almost like they took a snail and crossed it with another insect. It's pretty cool. Another wildlife enemy they give you is the spider ants. And they're kind of unique in the sense that their heads are super shielded. They can't really be shot from the front. You have to hit them from behind on the abdomen. And the last form of wildlife they don't use a lot in the game is the lava worm larva. And this enemy only appears maybe once or twice throughout the game, unfortunately. And that's really about it for the wildlife that we encounter. Another thing I have to mention is the enemies at the end of the game called the Guardians. They're really like a native species to the planet that actually guards the vault that we're looking for. I thought they had a pretty cool design, and they look really alien. I like them. And after that, really it's just human-based enemies that we encounter throughout the game. The first one we encounter is the bandits, and they're pretty iconic. They have the typical soldier style. There's also the mask-wearing psychos. Then there's the midget psychos. And then we have the bruisers, which are a larger, tankier version of the soldiers. And for the first 75% of the game, we alternate between the wildlife enemies and the bandits. In the last 25% of the game, as I mentioned earlier, we fight the Crimson Lance. And the Crimson Lance is a mercenary unit. They're basically like an army. They have infantry units, engineers, and defender units, which use a shield. I'm really glad they mixed up the enemies in the last 25% of the game because it was getting really repetitive. A nice little twist that they include in the Borderlands series is the badass enemies. They make the game a little more interesting and challenging. I really enjoy when they pop up, and they usually give really good loot. And that's pretty much all I have for enemies. Let's talk about the plot in Borderlands. Please be aware there are spoilers ahead. As the game opens, we find ourselves on a bus with Marcus, traveling towards the town of Firestone on Pandora. We then get to select one of the 4 Vault Hunters to be our main character. In my case, I chose Roland because I like his turret and his shotgun perks are better than none. We are then contacted by a mysterious voice, an angel claiming that the vault is real and that we have to find it before anyone else. She then tells us we need to follow the orders of the Claptrap that we'll meet after getting off the bus. And there he is, the majestic Claptrap. And from this point forward, we start to get introduced to the world. As we go through the story, we learn that the planet was actually abandoned by various corporations. One of them was the Dahl Corporation. They were harvesting large amounts of minerals using a large labor force. Most of them were criminals. However, when the wildlife became too chaotic, they chose to abandon the planet and the convicts. Now they run free, and everywhere we go, we run into them. Unfortunately for us, we have to try and find the vault key pieces that the bandits possess. The first key piece is with the bandit lord Sledge, so we track him down and kill him. After killing Sledge, we get to meet Tanis, a woman who's been working on the planet for a very long time and trying to solve the mystery of the vault. Tanis then provides guidance on where the next vault key sections are located. The second one is with a bandit lord named Crom. After we defeat Crom, we have to track down the third piece, which is with the Rack Hive on the Trash Coast. After we slay the Rack Hive, we then have to make our way towards Baron Flint. Baron Flint should have the last piece. Little do we know, it's actually been stolen by the Crimson Lance. At various points throughout the story, Commandant Steele will contact us and tell us to forfeit the vault key pieces that we have obtained and to leave the planet as soon as possible. However, after we defeat Baron Flint, we learn that he doesn't actually have the vault key segment. It's here that we learn that Tanis and the final segment for the vault key has been stolen by the Crimson Lance. We then have to race to the vault before they're able to open it. Unfortunately, we don't arrive in time. Commandant Steele is immediately killed, and then we're forced to fight the Destroyer. And man, I gotta say it, but for a final boss, this was pretty awesome. And at this point, we learn that the whole reason the Angel contacted us at the very start was to prevent the Destroyer from escaping the vault. There was no alien treasure, there was no riches to be had, and you might be able to guess, I don't really like the plot of Borderlands 1. About 80% of the game is go to point A, collect item B, return to point A. It's very cut and dry, very monotonous. So in summary, I have to say Borderlands is a lot of fun. The gameplay mechanics they bring for an RPG are unique and fresh. The weaponry you get to try in game is like no other. And the game brings a pretty fun co-op experience, not seen from most games. And if you want to have a lot of loot, this is the game for you. Now, with that being said, Borderlands is far from perfect. The plot isn't exactly what I would have hoped for, and the leveling mechanic sometimes screws you around. There's also a few bosses in the game that I really wish they would have gotten away from. And I really hate the idea that money is basically worthless. As a currency, it's not really useful in game. But overall, I really enjoy the game, and I would give it a B+. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate you guys watching to the end of the video. And lastly, but most importantly, I hope you all have a great day.